There are people who, by seeing you clearly, make it possible for you to see yourself. Not by telling you who you should be, not by correcting or improving or shaping you toward some better version. Just by looking at who you already are, honestly, warmly, without the distortions that most looking carries, and reflecting it back. And in that reflection, something shifts. Something that had been uncertain becomes a little more settled. Something that had been invisible becomes real. You are seen. And in being seen, you become, in some important sense, more fully yourself. Audrey Hepburn was 22 years old, recently arrived in London from the continent, when she met the man she would later credit as among the most important people in her life. Colette, the French novelist, chose her for a stage production of Gigi in 1951. And what happened in that choosing was not simply a professional casting decision. It was an act of recognition. Colette had seen something in the young Audrey Hepburn, something in the particular quality of her presence, her bearing, the specific combination of vulnerability and strength that she carried, that she believed in. Not believed the world would come to recognize, though that too. Believed was already there, already real, already worth building upon. Audrey Hepburn had not, at 22, come to believe this about herself. She had grown up during the German occupation of the Netherlands, during years when hunger and fear and the daily reality of a world that had lost its stability had been the texture of her childhood. She had survived. She was talented. She knew this in the way you know things that are self-evident, without yet having built the confidence that allows you to act on them fully. But she had not yet been seen in the particular way that Colette saw her, had not yet been told, by someone whose judgment she respected, that what she carried was not merely interesting, but extraordinary. That she was not a promising possibility, but a genuine thing, already formed, already herself, already worthy of the largest stages. The certainty with which Colette cast her, the absence of the hedging and the qualification that usually accompanies professional decisions about unknown talent, was itself a gift. Not only the opportunity, the certainty, the message embedded in being chosen without reservation. I see what you are. I have seen it clearly, and I believe in it without conditions. That kind of belief from someone whose seeing you trust changes something. Not in your abilities, those were already there, but in your relationship to your abilities. In your willingness to inhabit them fully, rather than offering them with the hesitation that comes from not yet having been fully recognized. Audrey Hepburn talked about this across the years that followed. The years of extraordinary success, of the films and the roles that became iconic, of a career that exceeded almost any expectation the world had held when she was first starting. She talked about the people who had believed in her before she fully believed in herself. She talked about what that early recognition had done, not just professionally, but in her sense of who she was. In the particular quality of self-trust that it had helped to build. In the ability to walk into difficult rooms with something closer to confidence than she had carried before. The seeing had made something possible, and she was grateful for it in a way that was specific and genuine, not merely performative. Maybe you've been seen like that. Maybe there has been a person in your life, A teacher, a mentor, a friend, a parent who understood, who looked at you clearly and told you what they saw. Not the managed version of what you were presenting, the real you, the abilities and qualities and particular ways of being that you were still learning to trust, and gave those things the gift of their genuine recognition. And maybe something shifted when they did. Something that had been uncertain became more settled. Something you had been carrying tentatively became something you could carry with more conviction. Because you had been seen. And in being seen, you became more fully real to yourself. That is the gift of genuine friendship. Not the social kind, but the deep kind. Not the friendship that is pleasant company and shared experiences, and the enjoyment of ordinary time together. Though that friendship is real and valuable and necessary, but the friendship that can see you, can look at who you are honestly and clearly, and reflect it back to you in a way that helps you see yourself. The friendship that knows your work and your qualities and your potential well enough to say, "This is what I see in you. This is what is real. This is what is worth believing in." And whose saying carries enough weight that you can receive it and let it work on the uncertainty and come away with something slightly more settled than you had before. Audrey Hepburn carried Colette's recognition with her for decades. Not as a trophy, not as evidence to produce when confidence was challenged, but as something more interior than that. A foundational piece of how she understood who she was. One of the early confirmations, from someone whose judgment she trusted that the particular thing she was carrying was real. And from that foundation, from that early, generous, specific recognition, she built a career and a life that expressed what she had been seen to contain. The seeing came first. The expression followed. That is how it so often works. We become more fully what we are when someone we trust has told us they can see it. Not that they created it, it was there before they looked. But the looking and the telling and the generous certainty of the recognition allows us to trust it in ourselves, to claim it, to move through the world as if it is really there, because someone whose seeing we trust has told us it is. Later in her life, Audrey Hepburn became known for something beyond her films, for the particular quality of her generosity. She worked for years with UNICEF, visiting the children of countries in crisis, bringing attention and resources to the most vulnerable. And people who watched her in that work noticed something: the quality of her seeing. The specific, unhurried, genuinely present way she looked at the children she met. The sense that when she looked at you, something in the looking was an act of recognition, an acknowledgement of your reality, your worth, your full humanity. She had been seen in that way early in her life, and she knew from her own experience what it meant to receive that kind of seeing. And she gave it back. In every room she entered for the rest of her life. That is the gift that moves. Not just received, passed forward, into the specific people you look at clearly and generously, into the children and the friends and the strangers who encounter someone who will actually see them today. The seeing that was given to you becomes the seeing you give. and the chain of recognition extends further than anyone in it can trace. So take a slow breath and think for a moment about who has seen you, who looked at you, at the real you, not the presented version, and reflected back something true and generous and more settled than the uncertainty you were feeling at the time. Who told you, in their way, that what you were carrying was real? And let yourself feel for a moment what that meant, what it shifted, what it allowed you to become. That was a gift of an extraordinary kind. And it came from someone who was willing to look carefully and speak honestly and trust that their recognition had value. It did. It does. And you can give it now, too, to the people in your life who are still waiting to be seen in that particular, generous, clarifying way. Look at them. Tell them what you see. Let the seeing move forward. The most enduring thing that a friendship can offer, the gift that outlasts all the shared experiences and the accumulated history, is the knowledge that you were fully known by someone who valued what they found there. Not a curated version, not the best parts carefully arranged for approval, the actual you, including the uncertainty and the difficulty and the qualities you were still learning to trust, known and valued, and seen as worthy of being believed in. Audrey Hepburn received that in her 20s from someone who had no obligation to give it. And she spent the rest of her life trying to give it back, to the people who worked with her, to the audiences who watched her, and most importantly, to the children in forgotten corners of the world who had never in their lives been looked at as if they mattered. She looked at them that way, every single time. Because she knew what it meant. Because she had felt it. Because someone had done it for her first. That chain, from the person who saw you, through you, to the people you will see, is one of the most important ones that a human life can be part of. You are in it, whether or not you have named it. The seeing that was given to you is still working. In you, in how you see others, in the small daily acts of genuine recognition that you offer without always knowing their weight. They have weight. They always have. Just as Colette's certainty had weight in a 22-year-old who needed someone to see her. Just as your seeing has weight in the people who need the same thing today. Look carefully. Speak honestly. The seeing is the gift.